Namaste, Dave.
Namaste, Bhagavan.
So things are moving very fast.
Yeah.
I guess you saw the video about my dream.
Yeah, really interesting.
What a coincidence. Just when we're discussing all this kind of paranormal experience, I go and have one.
Not to mention the double return I Ching reading.
Oh, yeah. And I had gotten it like 3 times in a row.
Wow.
Yeah. So the winter solstice, the first 6 degrees of Capricorn, when the sun goes through that part of the zodiac every year, that's the winter solstice. That's the turning point. The other name for return is turning point. Means the beginning of the return of the light. So after the darkest time of the year comes the return of the light, and the sun begins its northward motion, which will culminate in the summer equinox. Solstice, summer solstice. The equinoxes are spring and fall. The solstices are summer and winter. Okay, I just got up.
It's all good.
I'm working on my second cup of tea here. And you're at the end of your day.
Yeah, we kind of meet at these very interesting points.
The Sandhya, huh? The junctions.
Yeah.
It's such an important time. That's when you can penetrate the illusion most easily. That's why we say our prayers and meditate in the morning and evening, just before sunrise, just after sunset. But anyway, I digress. So the podcast about the telepathic kids was briefly number 1.
Yeah, outranking the Joe Rogan podcast, which is, usually the leading in the charts.
Yeah. That's astonishing. That says people want to believe in this stuff, because I think everybody has had paranormal experiences. But of course, the whole establishment, the whole society says, no, you didn't have a paranormal. It was just in your mind. Well, yeah, that's the whole point, isn't it? It's in your mind. But we have been taught, we have been conditioned, actually, by schooling and so on, to deny the evidence in our own being, in our own consciousness. Yet, every sentient being knows that it is conscious, isn't it? If you ask anybody on the street, do you exist? Are you conscious? What are they going to say?
They're going to go to the leading authority and they're going to ask them, am I conscious?
I don't think so.
Do I exist?
No, we instinctively, intuitively know that we are conscious. No instrumentality, no external confirmation is necessary. We know. Even animals know that they are existent and they are real.
There was a test that happened with a parrot. They were teaching parrot language, and they were doing the same telepathy test that they were doing with these autistic kids. And it had something to do, an undercurring theme was that the limitations of physical expression leads to a different type of communication because of a desire to want to communicate, which I thought was so interesting. But proves to your point that even animals, sentient beings, they don't need any external alphabet to know that they exist.
Run that by me again. What happened with the parrot?
So I may be like not summing this up correctly, but basically they taught a parrot multiple words, and this parrot was able to form sentences. And basically, the caretaker of the parrot uh, formed a very intimate relationship with this animal. And they took the caretaker, put them in a room, and took the parrot and put it in another room, and started to show images to the caretaker. And then the parrot would start to describe what the caretaker was viewing.
Whoa, I missed that one. That's a
Yeah.
that is cool.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I have that kind of relationship with a certain feline animal,
Exactly.
my lion. We read each other's minds routinely. Well, we share a mind. So, there's just no barriers at all. It's great.
Yeah, and that specific podcast gives so much evidence, experimental evidence, to show that consciousness goes beyond just human beings, goes beyond the space, time, and it uses all these different scenarios, whether it be people who are caretakers of the autistic non-speaking children who end up tapping into this ability to have telepathy.
Yeah, it can't be explained by materialistic science.
Yeah.
So materialism tries to deny it. It says it didn't happen. But everybody was there. They knew it happened. Huh? See, science cheats. And the way they cheat is by so-called elimination of unnecessary variables. In other words, they narrow the scope of the experiment until their theory works.
which is like the presumed assumptions that they place in order to even construct an experiment. It's like, okay, assuming this, and this, these parameters, this should be evident when we do this experiment. But then you have to look at the presumed assumptions that they're even making their judgments off of.
Yeah, they talk about laboratory conditions.
Exactly.
Laboratory conditions are necessary for science. But then their whole theory falls apart the moment it goes out the laboratory door. See, we're talking about real life here. This is stuff that happens in the real world, not in some artificially sterile environment. It happens to real people all the time. Huh? So, the people want to believe. And the popularity of that podcast proves that they will support and access people who, who encourage them to believe that they do have superpowers, they do have ESP and so on. Right? But the thing is, it can't happen in a laboratory. It can only happen in life where you have a real situation with real consequences and a real connection, emotional connection between two beings.
Yeah. They quote Mark Twain and Uptown Sinclair, which the article that sparked us into this whole inquiry, they also quoted the works of Mark Twain and Uptown Sinclair in ESP and in precognitive abilities, all these different things. And it was all consciousness-based universe, not a material-based.
Just briefly, what happened with Mark Twain? He dreamt of his brother's death?
Yeah, Mark Twain said that 2 weeks before his brother had died, he had a dream that his brother was in an iron casket with a flower arrangement of white flowers with a red flower in the center. And he was wearing his clothes. So his brother was wearing his clothes in the casket. He says he didn't pay much mind to it because his brother was alive and on journeys. 2 weeks later, his brother passes away, and some people that knew his brother had summed up some money to buy him an iron casket as, to honor his death. And Mark Twain went to go visit his brother, and he saw that all the things that were in his dream were accurate, even down to the fact that his brother was wearing his clothes. He didn't know that his brother had taken a couple of his outfits to go on this journey. He said, but then he was having like this, deja vu moment, and he stopped and he said, but something is missing. And just as he turned his head, a nun came in and put the bouquet of flowers on top of his brother's chest. So this is like one of the things that sparked Mark Twain to go on this whole ESP paranormal journey.
Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It happened to
I
someone
didn't
with
know that.
great credibility, huh? Somebody who at the time was so famous, they could, reach a very wide audience with this information.
Yeah.
So the scientists can make all the propaganda they want, but people's experience is always going to win out, because they know it happens to them. They have these dreams too. It's not just not limited to only, a certain class of people. Everybody has it.
Yeah.
Last time you talked about your vision of your brother punching the wall. So yeah, and this week I had the precognitive dream. The map of Lucknow in the dream was exact. When I looked it up on Google Maps, Google Earth, it was exact, just astonishingly accurate. So, the dream turned out to be a warning. The guy tried to cheat me.
Yeah.
He did try to cheat me, the rascal. That's what lawyers do, that's their job. You ever see that Jim Carrey movie, Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the job, So anyway, we have to set aside all the nonsense we've been taught about, what is real and what is not, and look into the reality. Because if we analyze philosophically, the world is always changing. It's impermanent. So, in principle, there's really no difference between the dream world, the Swapna consciousness, and the so-called real world, the Jagrat consciousness. Simply one we perceive through the senses and the other we perceive directly through the mind. But both of them are impermanent, therefore unreal to that extent. So yeah, anything can happen, and there is routinely a superimposition of one on the other. Like we superimpose our worldview on our dreams. And similarly, we superimpose our dreams on physical reality. And this is how great inventions, creativity, artists, and so on, how they work. So, this is all revealing the truths of consciousness that science wants to deny, but people in general know because they directly experience them. So I think this is all very positive. And, I'm glad to be somehow a part of all this. Because if there is going to be a new age of spiritual awareness, it's going to come from this kind of experience. And the point I wanted to make, that religion and spiritual organizations are just as much a part of the game, trying to narrow down, the influence and occurrence of extraordinary experiences They are just as much a part of the game as the establishment, because they want to say, oh, only if you follow our religion, then you get different powers and higher experiences, higher consciousness, etc. But this isn't true. Those experiences are the result of a natural law which operates beyond any human context, just like gravity. The laws of consciousness are universal. They apply to all creatures, gross and subtle. And they provide mechanism for this transfer of information from one being to another, which is really what precognition and telepathy are.
Yeah.
An anomalous transfer of information that doesn't go through the Jagrat world.
Yeah. Doesn't even go through light.
Yeah, it's a direct connection, mind to mind. But see, really, there is only one mind, the universe. And what we call the individual mind is just some little area that we have fenced off. So this is me, or this is mine. But actually, it's all connected. The mind exists in etheric space, akasha. It's vibrations. It's sound vibration, actually. So just like, TV, a TV signal can be encoded and transmitted through the air and decoded in the receiver, and then you get picture and sound. So in the same way, a dream or a vision or even a sense perception can be encoded in some way or other, which we don't know because the technology is beyond us. Nature is always going to be beyond us. And transmitted through akasha, the space, to another so-called another individual's mind. But really, it's just from one part of the universal mind to another. Theoretically, there's no problem. The religions, the philosophies, the science, the politics that tries to fence off different areas and say, oh, this is mine, this is ours, this is who you are, only this and nothing else, just a piece of meat rattling around on the planet, This is all bullshit. It has to be transcendent. No, seriously, call it what it is. It's a power-seeking, rent-seeking sales talk, puffery, hype. That's all. It's not real knowledge. Real knowledge is that everything is one.
Yeah. To add a anecdote, just because we've brought up the telepathy tapes, the non-speaking autistic people, they say that there's a place that they meet up with in their minds called the Hill. It's a space that they say is located in the mind that all people who cannot talk and have this autistic disability can go to and share their thoughts. And I thought this to be something that's absolutely incredible because it gives credence to Akash, even savants. It put into perspective how, savants who don't have functions, they're disabled, they're going through some type of suffering, some type of, restriction.
Like a constant trauma.
And being access to a larger bandwidth of experience. And the interesting thing was that these people do not have the association to the body-mind complex like we do, because their motor functions are inhibited. So the mind doesn't tell the body to do it accurately. So they associate more with their energy body than they do with their actual, their physical body, which I think is what even gives them the ability to project their awareness and even be able to enter other people's awareness, because they're already in that like a subtle body state that us as like regular human beings are trying to get through austerities or, mantras or sadhana.
Fascinating. So in our series now, we have divided these paranormal phenomena into 6 categories. And they're not just arbitrary, they're based on the chakras. Like everything we do, it refers back to that good old chart of the 4 states of consciousness and the chakras that manifest those 4 states in our experience. And then the chakras, the 7 chakras, have 7 energy states or energy levels. And their functions are different in the different energy levels, which makes sense. The more energy you have, the more stuff you can do. So as we go up the scale of the functions of the chakras, they manifest more higher functions. So in that view, you could say the lower chakras of the autistic kids are underdeveloped, and that leads to a corresponding higher development of the higher chakras or higher energy level, to say the same thing another way.
The prana is going to rise either way.
Yeah, it's got to, because that's what being alive is.
Yeah.
It's this tension, this current that flows between the Muladhara chakra and the Sahasrara chakra, the top of the head, between Shakti, Kundalini, and Shiva, consciousness. It's this spectrum. So when this energy is disturbed in any way, it always compensates by balancing the other way. I knew one blind girl in college. She was a musician, very good musician, played guitar and sang. She was blind, but after she met you once or twice, she could recognize you by your footsteps. In other words, her sense of hearing became more acute in response to her lack of vision.
Yeah.
And I think something similar is happening with these autistic kids and people whose maybe their body is not properly developed, but the body is only part of us, the gross body. The subtle body is actually the real being, because that's the part that lives on after the death of the gross body and can transfer to another body or whatever, depending on one's state of realization. So, we have a working theory already of how this works. And it can be used to predict similar occurrences. That when the emotions are in a high state of excitation, like they were, when I had my dream the other night, I had met someone who appeared to be very interesting. And they also found me interesting and invited me to come and visit and so on. So I was excited, emotionally excited. And then Ma stepped in and said, "Nah, wait a minute, something fishy is going on here," and showed me the map to prove that this was not just an ordinary dream. This was a message. It had real knowledge in it. And then showed me, that he was trying to cheat me and so on. And indeed, it was so. I don't want to get into the details, but turned out to be actual fact that was revealed through a dream. Now, that's pretty much the definition, like an anomalous information transfer.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the definition of ESP. So anyway, this is all very interesting. And we are going to be going into the categories, the 6 categories, which I outlined in this recent video, in detail, one by one, and doing the research and finding anecdotes. But I think We have enough anecdotes, Dave, just in our own experience.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah. I think though it's also good to include these reputable people because it brings it as, hey, here's the framework, here's a person who's seen in a certain light and very well known, and here's down to earth people who have had the same experience that are just shared.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the moment, Dave, that this stuff comes out and goes mainstream. And UFOs or UAPs, that's also becoming very popular. You know,
Yep.
I mean, the whole what was that show with Mulder and Scully?
That may be before my time.
The X-Files.
Oh, X-Files.
Yeah. And one of the sayings or tropes from that show is we want to believe. We want to believe that something extraordinary can happen. We want to believe that we are more than just a lump of meat scurrying around the surface of a ball of rock. you know, we want to believe there's more meaning to life, that life is bigger than that. And I think these incidents are great evidence to the fact that that's true. We are something beyond this gross body. And that something is actually more powerful and more important. Because when the subtle body leaves the gross body falls down dead. The subtle body is the life, the living force, the prana, the consciousness. And when this body gets worn out, it says, okay, I'm done with this, and it goes to the next one. I don't see any problem with that. In fact, it's everybody's experience every night in dreams, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're going to be going into all these categories of paranormal experience and investigating and coming up with examples and evidence and so on. And this moves us beyond the context of just religion. That's what I like about it. No, really, it takes us beyond this narrow context that you can only do this kind of stuff when it's directed by some authority, like a scripture or a guru or an organization or something. In fact, practically speaking, the organizations try to keep you from attaining realization because then if you do, you won't need them anymore. See, so their incentive is to actually keep you down. And the same with governments and businesses and schools and et cetera, et cetera. Their strategy, their game plan is to keep you from these powers, these paranormal experiences. Why do you think they lock these autistic kids up in homes?
Yeah.
At least in the US, they do, and Europe. They don't let them circulate in society because, maybe, the word will get out that they have paranormal abilities. And then
they don't even give them competence. They don't even acknowledge their competence.
Or their personhood in some cases.
Yeah.
The doctors were telling that Mexican lady that there was nobody home in her daughter. There was no person there. That's terrible.
That's, I think, a horrible disservice, and I don't think that medical industry should treat people like that, because words and belief, mentality, it shapes reality.
It shapes our perception.
Yeah.
The reality is what it is, but the way we
the reality. Yes, yeah, and thus saying that it puts her in a mindset where she could live the rest of her life never acknowledging the fact that her daughter is in there.
That would be horrible. But see, motherly
Even with
love,
gathering.
I think motherly love is stronger, stronger than all the bullshit.
That is true.
Okay, Dave, we're running out of time. Thank you so
Yes.
much. I really appreciate your presence here on the channel, your energy, and having another point of view, having another person to bounce stuff off. I think is contributes a great deal to the richness of the viewing experience of these videos. I guess I'm saying it in too a formal a way, but like thanks for being my friend.
Thank you, Bhagavan, for being my friend, and I enjoy this, and I hope that people can get something out of this, and it pushes their inquiry to, go all types of places to. Either way, you're going to realize the self.
Beautiful. Om Tat
Oh.